Oh no, my bank book is missing. I distinctly remember placing it at the back of this drawer. Could it be them? Despite supporting my eldest son and his wife, who have been living together for several years, they've ignored me for 3 years without even saying thank you. I simply wanted them to show a little gratitude. But it's okay now. I will never forgive them. I'm a 56-year-old retiree, having left my job to care for my unstable mother-in-law. Currently, I work from home while providing care. Although I was a few years away from retirement, I couldn't leave my mother-in-law living alone, so I decided to live with her. My husband is away on business and comes home once a month at best. But when he does, he brings lots of vegetables and Japanese sweets that my mother-in-law likes. Thank you. I'm so grateful for everything you do for me. I wish I could have fed your father too. My mother-in-law says every time she expresses her gratitude to us. My father-in-law passed away over 10 years ago from cancer, unable to eat his favorite foods in the end. My mother-in-law often regrets not having done tests earlier, and she wishes she could have fed him the delicious foods she eats now. My mother-in-law's condition varies greatly from day to day. Some days she's bedridden and barely eats, while on other days she's energetic and goes for a walk by herself. Her unpredictable behavior often surprises me, but as long as she enjoys her days, I'm happy to watch over her. However, there's a troublesome event that occurs 2 or 3 times a month for both my mother-in-law and me. It's when my eldest son and his wife from the neighborhood show up. Mom, Grandma, long time no see. Were you well? We're starving. Can you make something to eat right away? Sorry to intrude, mother-in-law. I'm hungry, so please hurry, they demand. Tom and Catherine, who got married a year ago, frequently visit our house like this, appearing suddenly and even asking for pocket money. They seem to know when the mother-in-law's pension comes in. Hey, Grandma, today's the day your pension comes in, right? Sorry, but could you donate a little to us, the less fortunate? I think to myself, it's starting again. Every time. They don't leave until they get the money. Tom, enough is enough. What about your job? Aren't you working? Stop begging for Grandma's precious pension. However, my attempts to intervene usually end in a quarrel. I relay everything to my husband, who's away on business. He just sighs in exasperation, muttering about what a troublemaker our son is for not holding a steady job. What is he even doing? Just got married. And he's already hopeless, my husband remarks. Though he scolds our son over the phone, it seems to have no effect. This constant cycle of their visits leaves my mother-in-law and me exhausted, losing the will to do anything else. I'm tired, really. It's like they drain all my energy, I confess. Initially, we'd endured their visits, thinking it was only 2 or 3 times a month. But their frequency increased, adding to our stress. Then, in the middle of a weekday, my son suddenly arrived home. I got fired from my job, and for a while, I want to live here, he announced. He had been repeatedly absent without leave, even losing a USB containing important company data. Initially facing a pay cut, he ended up fighting with his boss and getting fired. Despite being clearly at fault, he seemed unrepentant. Seriously, none of them even do their jobs properly and act all high and mighty. That's why I hate people who act like they're elite, my son grumbled. He declared his intention to move in next week, dismissing our concerns about his grandmother's health. Despite my attempts to refuse, he remained stubborn, insisting that his decision was final. Faced with his determination, I couldn't help but sigh. If my husband were here, he would sternly scold them and send them away, but I can't stand up to them alone. Hey, Emily, is Tom moving in here? If so, should I go to a facility? I'll be in the way. And those kids aren't even working, my mother-in-law fretted. Don't worry about such things, mother-in-law. I'll make sure Tom gets a job, and he'll be leaving soon, I reassured her. I feel terribly sorry for making my elderly mother-in-law worry like this. We doted on our only son, but we never intended to raise him to be so unreasonable. The son I knew was kind and considerate, but he clearly changed after meeting his wife, Catherine. To ease my mother-in-law's worries, I offer her assurance. I reassured my mother-in-law, "You don't have to worry about anything. I intend to take good care of you." I repeated my explanation several times, and gradually the tension on her face eased. However, the day my son and his wife moved in arrived sooner than expected. Despite having separate bedrooms, we rearranged the rooms to share one, as my mother-in-law felt insecure being alone. Her desire to share a room highlighted her anxiety. Unfortunately, their behavior from the first day was appalling. "Hey, Mom, we're planning to use the entire second floor for our room. That's okay, right? From today, the second floor bathroom is ours only. You guys don't come upstairs, okay? We're still technically newlyweds, and we don't want unnecessary people coming and going, so please understand," my son announced. They even moved all the stuff from my workroom to the hallway on the same day, leaving me speechless. It became clear that if I stayed silent, they would continue to do and say whatever they wanted. My son added, "Mom, the mortgage on this house is still ongoing, right? I don't plan to pay rent until I find a job, nor do I intend to pay for groceries or utilities. So take care of it." Feeling increasingly irritated, I reluctantly responded, "Ah, I see." From then on, I was ignored by my son and his wife. A week passed since they moved in, and there were no signs of my son job hunting. His wife left dirty dishes unwashed, neglected laundry, and they freely used our car without asking, leaving it full of trash and low on gas without refueling. Overwhelmed with responsibilities, my mother-in-law, who should be relaxing, ended up helping with the housework. Realizing this was wrong, I confronted my son. "Tom, are you even job hunting? You can't just stay at home all the time. Do something, at least clean up your dishes." However, he continued to ignore me. Complaining to his wife, he said, "Lately, I've been hearing these hallucinations. Just now, I heard something about job hunting or whatever. We have a place to live and food to eat, so why work? Stupid." They laughed about it, referring to my mother-in-law and me as hallucinations and ghosts. Despite our frustration, my mother-in-law and I decided to let them be for a bit longer, believing our chance for payback would come eventually. We constantly talked about them when they weren't around, discussing our options to get them out of the house and make them regret their actions. Sharing a bedroom, we spent the entire day excitedly discussing our plan in this challenging situation. I might have succumbed to depression if I were facing this alone, but being together makes it feel like we can get through it. Almost 3 years have passed since they moved in, and it's been 3 years since they started ignoring us. Perhaps they think we're ghosts. True, they haven't paid a penny for rent or living expenses. Their savings must be running out soon, right? Indeed, they might be covering their cell phone bills and dining out. But I've heard they're estranged from Catherine's parents, so financial help seems unlikely. They may ignore us now, but surely they'll come to us for help once they run out of money. We decided that's when we'll take our revenge. It was 2 weeks after that conversation, when we were busy preparing for my mother-in-law's clinic visit. I noticed my son acting fidgety since morning, not seeming hungry but searching for something. Knowing he would ignore me if I spoke, I pretended not to notice and left for the hospital. Upon returning home, I discovered my son and his wife were gone, and my bank book was missing. Thinking the worst, I went to check my bedroom. Oh no, my bank book is missing. I'm sure I put it in the back of this drawer. Could it be them? I thought. It was too much, even criminal. My mother-in-law came and asked, "Emily, what's wrong? You look pale. Did something happen?" So, I told her that Tom and Catherine stole my bank book. They took the bank book that was kept here. The house mortgage is $2,000 a month, and on top of that, I've been supporting my son and his wife who haven't paid a penny. This is the result. I didn't expect them to say thank you, but I at least wanted them to show some gratitude. But it's okay now. I will never forgive them. Despite the theft, according to my online banking, no money had been withdrawn from the account yet. I rushed to the bank to close the account. They were mistaken if they thought they could withdraw cash with just the bank book without knowing the PIN and without the seal. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became at my son and his wife. I informed my husband about the stolen bankbook, and he said, "It's over. We can disown them for all I care." My mother-in-law suggested reporting to the police, but we decided to leave the house as quickly as possible, making it our last resort. I couldn't let them run wild anymore and refused to be taken advantage of. Despite feeling sorry for the sudden upheaval, we chose to stay at a hot spring inn until the problem was resolved. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I'll work on resolving this issue quickly, so please bear with it here for a while. Don't worry about me. Besides, I'm happy to stay at such a luxurious inn. At that moment, I resolved that once this problem was settled, I would definitely find a comfortable new home for my mother-in-law. A few days later, after completing various procedures, I finally had a moment to relax. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call much sooner than I had anticipated, and of course, the caller was my son. "Hello, Mom. You haven't been home lately. Are you on a trip?" "Grandma's not there either, so I was just wondering what happened and got worried," he said, his voice clearly trembling and upset. It's odd, isn't it? He ignored me for 3 years, yet now he can talk when he's in trouble. What's the matter? This is the first time you've spoken to me in 3 years. Do you need something? By the way, I have no business with you guys. Don't say that, please. I don't understand, but we received a notice to vacate the house by the end of the month. It's our own house, so what's going on? He explained. The real estate agent, outraged by our story, had swiftly proceeded with the paperwork, sending the eviction notice within 2 days. Impressed by the real estate agent's prompt action, I decided to reveal the truth to my son. "Ah, that house. I sold it because I thought it was no longer needed, and it seems the new buyer wants you to leave soon." "What? Even if you say that, we have nowhere to live. Where are you and Grandma now?" "We'll come there," my son pleaded, still trying to use us even in this situation. Enough is enough, I thought. Why are you crying to me now? What a pathetic man. You freeloaded for 3 years, ignoring me and Grandma. Isn't that a bit too convenient? Just so you know, I intend to cut ties with you. Your father agrees with this decision. Don't say that, please. I didn't mean it. I wanted to get along with you and Grandma, and I'm looking for a job too. My son replied, spilling lies that astonished both my mother-in-law and me. If he had shown genuine remorse, we might have reconsidered, but he had already crossed the line by stealing the bankbook. By the way, you stole my bankbook from the bedroom, didn't you? What were you planning to do with it? You thought as long as you got the money, everything would be fine, right? Lying won't do you any good. No, that's not. I could tell from the other end of the phone that my son was on the verge of tears. Then, realizing my son was useless, his wife took the phone. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? Kicking your son and his wife out of their house. Doesn't your heart ache? Are you a demon?" Just as I anticipated what she would say next, my daughter-in-law unleashed a barrage of hysterical insults. She went so far as to claim, "You're just living off Grandma's pension too. You're no different from Tom, acting all high and mighty without a job." I was so shocked that I froze for a moment, mouth hanging open. Joeless, do you think I could pay off the mortgage of that big house if I were jobless? I've been paying $2,000 every month, and for your information, I'm not jobless, I retorted. It felt pointless to reveal the truth. Her level of unawareness was apparent. In reality, I earned about $5,000 a month from my remote work. Still, I saw no need to share these details with them. If they had seen the bank book's contents, they might have figured it out. But hey, Catherine, you're jobless too. Yet you always wear branded items. Where did you get those? I think the one acting strange here is you, I pointed out. I suspected, though couldn't confirm, that she was in debt, always carrying new designer bags and wallets. Even my son, before being fired, worked at a decent company and earned a fair salary. It seemed like she was the one who ruined everything. I have no intention of prying into your private affairs, but if you're in debt, you'd better deal with it quickly before things get out of hand. Also, please leave that house as soon as possible. I'll take my leave now." Despite having more to say, I decided to let them face their impending doom on their own. After hanging up, I ignored all the apology emails from my son. My husband, who had also been contacted, dismissed them with even colder words than I did. We had been ignored until now, but it was our turn to ignore them. They should thoroughly enjoy their hellish lives. A few months later, I heard that the couple had moved out of the house into a shabby apartment. Catherine had accumulated a significant amount of debt. Although my son tried to initiate a divorce, they decided to repay the debt together since it was also in his name. With both of them jobless, they struggled to repay and were now busy working while being chased by debt collectors. Their hellish life continued, but they should try their best to overcome it. As for me, I'm currently considering a house to live in with my mother-in-law. My husband is likely to return from his business trip soon, so we're planning to live together in a comfortable house, enjoying a peaceful and happy life. I prided myself on being a devoted father for securing a house for my daughter. However, my husband, without consulting me, decided to use my money to purchase a luxury apartment. Frustrated by his audacious plan, I swiftly responded by presenting him with divorce papers. In the face of my unexpected move, my husband was taken aback, clearly unprepared for such a turn of events. With a smirk, Jocelyn Anderson, a 50-year-old office worker with a passion for French since my student days, initiated what I considered the real retaliation. Let me take you back a bit. I had been married at 23, but my first husband passed away just 6 months into our marriage due to a tragic traffic accident caused by a drunk driver. Although I received $500,000 as insurance money, no amount of wealth could bring my late husband back. During that period of mourning, Ernest Anderson, a compassionate colleague from the same company, provided solace by lending a patient ear to my stories. Gradually, our connection deepened, leading to our remarriage when I was 25. Fast forward to the present, and my daughter, Christina, now an independent illustrator, had stirred tension in our family. Disagreements over her education arose during her senior year of high school. Ernest had always imposed his ideal path for Christina, envisioning her attending a prestigious university and pursuing a conventional career in a big corporation. His expectations clashed with Christina's passion for illustration, a talent she had cultivated since childhood. Despite my initial support for Ernest's educational decisions, I found myself at odds with him when Christina expressed her desire to attend an art university to become an illustrator. While I was open to embracing her chosen path, Ernest vehemently opposed it, insisting on a conventional trajectory that clashed with our daughter's dreams. The struggle over Christina's future had become a battleground, and the real retaliation was about to unfold. I opted not to embark on a freelance career initially, choosing instead to work for a company. Christina shared her aspirations to become an illustrator, but my husband dismissed her dreams, considering it merely a pastime with drawings. His harsh words compelled me to defend Christina's autonomy, asserting that it was her life, and she should have the opportunity to pursue her passion. This stance only fueled his anger, as he asserted that it was his daughter and that a child's role was to fulfill their parents' dreams. He adamantly believed that if Christina followed his prescribed path, she would unquestionably find happiness. I was taken aback by his biased views, hoping he would eventually understand and support our daughter's choices. Unfortunately, my optimism was misplaced, leading to a deep rift between us. Despite my financial support for Christina's education and living expenses, Ernest remained dissatisfied, continually expressing his discontent. Even after Christina successfully gained admission to her preferred art university and secured a job as an illustrator, Ernest refused to acknowledge her achievements. His complaints persisted, questioning the worth of the money spent on tutoring and labeling her a failure. Christina, resilient in her pursuit, worked energetically, occasionally sacrificing weekends and sleep for her craft. However, Ernest's attitude towards her job remained unchanged. Moreover, he became harsher towards me for supporting Christina, criticizing everyday aspects of our household. Realizing this was his true nature, I found staying at home increasingly painful. Fortunately, our work roles in different departments at the same company spared me from daily confrontations. Yet, amidst this strained dynamic, Ernest surprisingly declared his intention to buy Christina a luxury apartment, citing her importance as his daughter. Despite his apparent disdain for her career choice, this sudden change in attitude raised suspicions, prompting me to question his motives. Doubts crept into my mind about whether Ernest even had the financial means to purchase a luxury apartment. Observing my reaction, he coldly smirked and disclosed his plan, stating that I would be the one footing the bill. Shocked, I protested, urging him not to make such decisions without consulting me. Angrily, Ernest snorted, revealing his knowledge of the $500,000 insurance money from my late husband, suggesting I use it to fund the apartment. He callously declared his intent to live there with Christina, emphasizing that both she and I were ultimately his possessions. Fueled by a fierce anger, I could not fathom his vindictive scheme and the audacity to exploit crucial insurance money for such a purpose. In response, I retaliated without mercy, presenting him with divorce papers. Astonished, Ernest likely hadn't anticipated my preparedness, but this marked the commencement of my real retaliation. Facing him with a smirk, I explained my long-standing lack of trust in someone who discriminated against his own daughter and expressed my exhaustion with constant criticism. I disclosed my decision to divorce him, clarifying that I had been contemplating it for a while, waiting for the opportune moment. Seizing on his earlier mention of divorce, I handed him the papers, urging him to file quickly if he desired freedom. Initially dismissing it as a joke, Ernest reacted angrily when confronted with the reality of divorce. My anger peaked as he attempted to downplay the situation. Unperturbed, I insisted he accept the divorce papers, emphasizing the incomprehensible principles behind his actions. Threatening legal consultation, Ernest reluctantly received the papers, still claiming it was all a jest. Concerned about potential retaliation, I swiftly left the house, submitting the divorce papers to the city court. I promptly informed Christina about the outrageous behavior, and she too expressed fury. She condemned her father's actions and offered solace, suggesting that I stay at her apartment for a while. So, I made the decision to spend the night at Christina's place. That evening, we delved into discussions, meticulously planning our next moves against Ernest. About a week later, on holiday, Christina and I paid a visit to Ernest's house, the place I had called home until just a week prior, now feeling like a distant stranger's abode. Upon ringing the doorbell, Ernest swiftly emerged, adopting a condescending gaze as he questioned our purpose. He arrogantly assumed we had come to apologize for everything. Despite the infuriating condescension, I suppressed my anger and spoke in a meek, apologetic tone, claiming that I had indeed come to apologize for my wrongdoings. Christina, playing the role of a repentant daughter, echoed my sentiments. Oblivious to the theatrics, Ernest appeared genuinely pleased, believing we had come to our senses. However, his curiosity was piqued when he noticed the bags we carried, bags so full they were on the verge of bursting, tied up tightly to conceal their contents. From one of the bags, I extracted a bundle of actual $10,000 bills. Expressing remorse for my actions, I offered him some of my late husband's insurance money, urging him to use it to live in the luxury apartment with Christina. I mentioned the $500,000 total and asked him to keep it safe. Ernest's eyes gleamed at the sight of the money, and he eagerly agreed to safeguard it. He led us into the house without hesitation. Despite having left just a week earlier, the place was in disarray, with laundry and garbage scattered about. Suppressing laughter, I imagined Ernest's struggle to maintain the house on his own. Christina and I placed the bag's contents into the safe, excluding the $10,000 bundle. Fortunately, when Ernest went to the kitchen to make coffee, he remained oblivious to our actions. After returning to Christina's apartment, I grabbed the bags and left for a new place on my own. Christina bid me farewell with a smile, assuring me she would contact me once she was settled. 2 days later, while I was peacefully asleep in my new residence, Ernest called, inquiring about the $500,000. I chuckled heartily, realizing that he had taken longer than expected to notice. Ernest had fallen for our trap. The bags mostly contained just newspapers, cleverly arranged to create the illusion of holding $500,000. I had only prepared $110,000 from the bank to make Ernest believe my ruse. After depositing that money back into my account, it was no longer in my possession. If Ernest had probed further and asked to see inside the bags, I intended to reveal the truth, asserting that such an incredible deal couldn't possibly be genuine. However, deceived by just the $10,000, Ernest had been completely fooled. I had only prepared $110,000 from the bank to make Ernest believe me. After depositing that money back into my account, it was no longer in my possession. If Ernest had probed further and asked to see inside the bags, I intended to reveal the truth, asserting that such an incredible deal couldn't possibly be genuine. However, deceived by just the $10,000, Ernest had been completely fooled. Until now, you did terrible things to Christina and me, so I thought it was only fair to retaliate like this. If you want to resent someone, resent your past self, not me, I calmly stated. Ernest, looking troubled, began to plead, admitting his faults and asking me to return. Shocked by his selfish reasoning, I firmly rejected his proposal. I'm not an ATM or your housekeeper. You're an adult, handle it yourself. Besides, I'm in France now. This isn't just a vacation, it's an overseas transfer for work. I decided to divorce you and start a new life abroad. I revealed, explaining my decision to pursue my dreams and escape from him. Ernest, perplexed by the news, questioned why I hadn't informed him earlier. I dismissed his query, stating that we were practically strangers now, working in different departments. Furthermore, I revealed that Christina would contact him the next day through a messaging app. The following day, amidst the early hours due to the time difference, I initiated a video call through the messaging app with Ernest and Christina. Christina began expressing her sentiments, reminiscing about her childhood adoration for Ernest, but quickly transitioning to her current disdain. You completely dismissed my career choice. That's when I saw your true nature. You just wanted to control me. There was no love. Now, I hate you and never want to see you again. This call is the last time we'll speak. I'm cutting ties, Christina declared firmly, leaving Ernest visibly distressed. Unexpectedly calm, Ernest pleaded for her understanding, seemingly assuming Christina would always adore him. However, Christina remained resolute, urging him to reflect on his actions. She then informed him that she had moved, advising him not to attempt to locate her new address through investigators or any other means. Adding to her announcement, I informed Ernest that I had informed his workplace, relatives, and parents about the reasons for our divorce, ensuring transparency about our decision. With that, the call concluded, leaving Ernest to reflect on the consequences of his actions. After ending the video call with Christina, I mirrored her actions, ignoring Ernest's pleading apologies. His remorse no longer held any significance to me. Christina expressed a sense of relief, feeling liberated after voicing her true feelings. Executing our plan brought a semblance of satisfaction, especially witnessing the impact it had on Ernest. In the aftermath, Ernest faced consequences at various fronts. He became uncomfortable at work and eventually resigned. Disowned by relatives and parents, he had to abandon the luxury apartment purchase. His disruptive actions even led to a scene at Christina's workplace, resulting in a ban for entering. Ernest's selfish choices resulted in a cascade of losses, and he retreated into a reclusive existence at home. Attempts to contact him for work-related matters were in vain. When a colleague finally visited his house, they encountered a disheveled Ernest with a wild beard, lifeless face, and a nauseating odor emanating from his abode. His once home had transformed into a ghostly garbage dump. Observing Ernest's miserable life, I couldn't help but think that he was reaping what he sowed. Meanwhile, I found happiness in my new life abroad, overcoming cultural barriers with careful communication and relishing the use of my French skills. The decision to transfer overseas proved to be a rewarding one. Christina, thriving in her career as an illustrator, had been entrusted with significant projects. In our phone conversations, she conveyed her satisfaction, emphasizing the joy of pursuing her passion. As a parent, witnessing my daughter shine in her chosen path brought immense gratification. Despite the challenges and adversities, both Christina and I emerged from the ordeal radiant and fulfilled in our respective lives. The journey, though tumultuous, affirmed that we had made the right choices, and the pursuit of our dreams had led to a brighter and more gratifying existence. Ending our marriage was undoubtedly the right decision. You and your child remain as pitiable as ever. Despite earning $200,000 a year, my ex-husband seems more interested in boasting about himself than addressing our situation. He introduces me to his new wife, Harriet, leaving me bewildered about his thought process. As I attempt to leave, my ex-husband blocks my path and questions whether my apparent jealousy stems from their perceived happiness. His condescending remark about my financial status doesn't sit well with me. Feeling a mix of disgust and exasperation, I maintain my silence. However, my son Johnny intervenes, suggesting that we fire this guy. Fast forward to the present. I am Lisa, 42 years old, married to George, a former co-worker since I was 26. After working and quitting when I became pregnant, I contemplate returning to the workforce as Johnny begins elementary school. George, eager for me to find employment, is persistent in his suggestions and preferences for my work hours. Although initially supportive, George's true colors begin to show when I start a part-time job. A few months into my new job, a shocking message arrives on my phone from a former colleague, revealing my husband's affair with a woman from our company, the daughter of the division manager. The accompanying pictures leave me deeply shaken. As the gossip unfolds, I decide to respond with thanks and close the messaging app, grappling with the unexpected turn of events. I never fathomed that my husband could be unfaithful, but as I reflected on recent events, everything fell into place. His persistent push for me to work harder, even when childcare arrangements were not settled, now made sense. He likely saw it as an opportunity to have more freedom for his affair. Today, he claims to be on an overnight business trip, but I suspect it's a cover for quality time with his mistress. Confronting him the next day, I couldn't maintain a facade of composure. I presented the incriminating pictures, expecting some form of excuse. However, his response shocked me. Acknowledging his infidelity without remorse, he explained that the woman was the division manager's daughter, and marrying her would secure his promotion. He coldly compared her to me, emphasizing her youth and attractiveness. His lack of guilt and blatant disrespect left me disappointed. Instead of apologizing, he suggested an expedited divorce. Unable to feign indifference, I agreed for the sake of my mental well-being and swiftly settled for child support and property division. With custody of Johnny, he left callously, advising me to scrape by on a single income while he joined the ranks of the wealthy through his impending marriage. Though mentally relieved, daily life posed new challenges. Despite the financial support, my savings were modest, and I had to transition from part-time to full-time work. Johnny's after-school programs became a necessity, adding to the complexity of our lives. The unfamiliarity of a full-time job, coupled with the sole responsibility for housework, made every day a struggle. As the years passed, adaptation became a constant companion. Now, 7 years post-divorce, with Johnny in middle school, life has settled into a rhythm. He can mostly take care of himself, allowing me to reflect on the resilience developed through the challenges and changes life threw our way. I think he's grown into a very responsible boy compared to other boys his age, perhaps because I'm always so busy. He even takes on the responsibilities of cooking and doing laundry for me. Thanks to him, I've been free from housework and childcare, and for the past few years, I've had time for myself. Both my personal and working life are going very well. Now I can say it clearly. I'm certainly glad I broke up with that awful man. If I had continued to be married to him, I wouldn't have this life now. However, one day, while my son and I were shopping at the local mall, I ran into that terrible guy, my ex-husband, George. I didn't notice him, but he started talking to me. Hey, isn't that you, Lisa? Long time no see. You've really aged. Is that what you say to someone you haven't seen in a while? A person with normal sensitivity would never say that to a woman. I could tell in an instant that he hadn't grown at all as a person. Within a few seconds of meeting him, annoyance crept in, and I snapped back. Huh? You're the one who's aged a lot. I didn't recognize you for a moment. Honestly, George had aged a lot. I hadn't seen him for 7 years, but it felt like he aged twice as much. His hair was thinning, and his belly protruded, showing a complete middle-aged figure. I thought talking to my ex-husband was a waste of time, so I tried to walk away, saying, "Oh well, long time no see. But I don't really have anything to say to you. See you later." However, he wouldn't let me go. He stood in my way and started talking nonsense. Hey, don't be so cold. The family is all together again. Let's catch up for a bit. I didn't want to hear anything about his life. If there's one thing I'd like to complain about, it's that he stopped paying child support a few years after our divorce. Child support is not my right, but Johnny's right. The fact that he could talk so openly in front of Johnny, who was owed that money, made me irritated. But George didn't care about my mood at all. He started talking about his recent life, which I didn't want to hear. After our divorce, I remarried. I married the daughter of the manager who was in that picture with me. Oh, he's not a manager anymore. He's an executive now. And I got promoted to manager. I'm definitely winning now. To be honest, I don't care how much George has been promoted. It has nothing to do with me, and I'm not envious. All I thought was, why are you bragging about not paying child support even after being promoted? He's such a cheap man to not even pay a few $1,000s a month, even though he's winning. And to rub it in even more, George continued his bragging. Breaking up with you was the right choice. You and your son still look poor. I make $200,000 a year. In the end, George just wanted to brag about himself. He didn't even try to hear about our lives. I thought that any normal parent would be curious about their child's life. But he didn't even talk to Johnny, who was standing right in front of him. He's really a terrible father. Oh, that reminds me. Let me introduce you. Hey. George called over a woman who was looking at clothes in the distance. The woman came over, and I knew right away who she was. I had seen her in a picture before. It was George's new wife, Harriet. Meet my wife, Harriet. How about that? She's way more beautiful than you, isn't she? He introduced me to his new wife. What was he thinking? This woman stole my husband when we were married. I'm glad we're apart now. But back then, it was shocking, and I did resent it at the time. I have no good impression of this woman at all. You'd think my ex-husband would know that, even though he's not the brightest, but he must be really looking down on us. He seems not to have the brains to realize even that. Oh, is that all? I don't have time. Bye-bye, I said, feeling extremely unpleasant. Of course, I don't even glance at the woman, let alone greet her. Wait a minute. As I was about to leave, he blocked my path again. I wanted to leave the scene as soon as possible so I wouldn't retort, but my ex-husband stood in front of me, blocking my path. Stop it. There's no point in hearing about your home life. Jealous because we look happy. You're not just poor in money. Don't be bitter in your heart too. You'll only get more miserable. My ex-husband arbitrarily decides that I'm unhappy. Mind your own business. I'm perfectly happy, so leave me alone. The most unfortunate thing lately is being spoken to by you. Even though I say I'm happy, my ex-husband doesn't believe it at all and arbitrarily worries about my situation. Well, happiness varies from person to person, but being poor isn't happy. Don't push yourself. It's probably impossible for you to remarry with those conditions. I'm worried about you as your ex-husband, you know. saying that my ex-husband's face showed an expression completely opposite to concern. He's making a complete fool of me. When I looked at the face of my ex-husband's wife standing next to him, she was also smirking, looking like she's making fun of me. I'll never be friends with this woman. She feels good by looking down on people. She's the worst kind of woman. You'd think my ex-husband would know that, even though he's not the brightest, but he must be really looking down on us. He seems not to have the brains to realize even that. Oh, is that all? I don't have time. Bye-bye, I said, feeling extremely unpleasant. Of course, I didn't even glance at the woman, let alone greet her. As I was about to leave, he blocked my path again. I'll tell you, we're still in love, so the chance of getting back together is 0. Don't get your hopes up for something wrong. My ex-husband seems to be having some wild delusion. He thinks I'm still attached to him, even though it's been 7 years since our divorce due to his affair. His head is so full of fantasies that I can't say anything. When I was at a loss for words because of my ex-husband's ridiculous delusion, he seemed to think he was right. Hey, too shocked to say anything? Being a popular man is tough. What's popular about a middle-aged man's appearance? I'm past anger and starting to feel sick. When I was silent, my ex-husband tried to say something more, but Johnny interrupted him. Mom, can you fire this guy? Huh? My ex-husband was dumbfounded by Johnny's incomprehensible words. It seems that Johnny is very angry, calling me this guy instead of Dad. Well, it doesn't matter, but what do you mean? I'm not getting fired, am I? You're in middle school now. Study properly. He talked down to Johnny too. It's unforgivable that he's making fun of my beloved son as well. I was about to explode with anger at my ex-husband when I heard a voice calling me. Hey, what's going on here? A man came over calling out. My ex-husband froze when he saw the man's face. Why are you here, boss? My ex-husband asked the man in front of him. I'm just here shopping with my family. Are you saying I shouldn't be here? No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way, but I was just wondering why you were talking to my ex-wife. Oh, that's natural. She's my current wife, after all. What? Her. No, this is your wife, boss. I can't believe. Actually, about 3 years ago, I remarried with the CEO of my deceased husband's company, with whom I had lost my wife. The CEO and I became close after my divorce when he approached me while I was shopping at the supermarket. Since I had previously worked at the same company as my ex-husband, I knew the CEO. The CEO knew that my ex-husband had an affair with the head of his department's daughter, leading to our divorce, and that he later married her. It seemed that the CEO was quite bitter about this as a fellow man. But he thought he couldn't meddle in an employee's private life until he saw me at the supermarket and impulsively spoke to me. I was very surprised since I knew the CEO, but I didn't think he would remember my face and name as just an ordinary employee. Perhaps he remembered me easily because I worked at the reception desk of the company. It seems your marriage didn't work out, but I'm sure you'll find someone better soon. CEO, I'm glad you remember me, but you don't have to worry about me. I'm fine. At that time, I had been divorced for less than a year, so I was somewhat putting on a brave face. But the CEO, with his vast life experience, saw right through my act and comforted me with kind words. Divorce takes more than 3 times the effort of marriage. Even if you divorce smoothly, it's tiring. I've never been divorced, but I felt utterly unmotivated when I lost my wife to death. When a man and woman who once loved each other part ways, that's just how it is, so you don't need to put on a brave face. The CEO knew the loneliness of ending a married life. Indeed, while I was glad to have separated, I was also feeling a whirlpool of emotions like loneliness and emptiness at the time. So his words touched my heart. If talking to someone like me helps, call me anytime. I'll treat you to dinner whenever you like, he said, handing me his business card. I thought it would be too bold to contact him for about 2 years, but as time passed, I calmed down and wanted someone to talk to again. so I finally decided to call the CEO. Despite his busy schedule, the CEO made time for me and treated me to dinner. When I was an employee, the CEO was still a department head, and he had an unapproachable aura since he was the previous CEO's son. But once we had dinner together, I found him easy to talk to, like a nice uncle. Perhaps because I was no longer an employee, the CEO and I quickly became good drinking buddies. Then, about a year passed, and the CEO proposed to me with a serious look. "You're kidding, Steve. Don't joke like that." I was told while drinking, so I thought it was a joke, but the CEO was serious. "At first, I wanted to encourage you after your divorce, but being with you really calms me down. I haven't felt this way since I lost my wife. Honestly, I feel like I'm the one being healed now. If you're willing, let's spend the rest of our lives together." "Give me a day to think about it," I said and consulted with my son. "I don't mind. You should decide based on whether you like him or not, Mom." Since there was no particular opposition, I decided to marry the CEO. To be honest, I liked him. I thought he was just a drinking buddy. But I also felt truly healed when I was with him. We both felt comforted, so I thought there was no obstacle to living together. And when I heard the story about the president's deceased wife, I really understood that he loved her. Every time I heard that story, I thought about how happy. The aftermath of encountering my ex-husband at the shopping mall took an unexpected turn, leading to revelations and consequences I hadn't foreseen. When I revealed to my ex-husband and his wife that I had remarried the president of my deceased husband's company, their reactions were shock and disbelief. My ex-husband's demeanor changed, and he attempted to smooth things over, but it was clear that the president took Johnny's words seriously, especially given rumors about my ex-husband's behavior in the company. The president decided to investigate the matter further, despite my ex-husband's attempts to dissuade him. Even his wife couldn't prevent the investigation from proceeding, although she tried to distance her father from the situation. As the investigation unfolded, it revealed a pattern of misconduct including harassment, verbal abuse, favoritism, and exploitation of their positions for personal gain. My ex-husband and the executive faced demotion and relocation to a branch office. Eventually, they resigned from the company and faced legal repercussions, including lawsuits from employees they had mistreated. The downfall of my ex-husband and his wife's deteriorating marriage underscored the importance of living honestly and treating others with sincerity. Meanwhile, life continued for me and my family. Despite being 42, I welcomed a healthy baby, and Johnny embraced his role as a big brother with love and care. Looking at my newborn's peaceful face, I felt a sense of gratitude and determination. Despite the challenges of raising another child at my age, I was committed to working hard for my family's well-being and future. As I faced each day, I carried with me a deep sense of gratitude for the new life that had entered our world.